back to Blending Like Bosses. We're the Traylors.
Blended families don't come with instructions, but we can help you make a plan so you can blend like bosses.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. We are Scott and Michelle Traylor, and we are a blended family of 8. Although, why do you have 9 people on your shirt?
We accidentally added one. We do have another one living with us. This has just helped me remember their names, count them off, that kind of thing.
Right. When we travel, we do kind of use her shirt as like the checklist. Okay, Channing, check. Braden, check. Oh no, where's Silas? Silas? Silas?
It was a gift to myself for Mother's Day last year. So, we have an important show today, a good show for you today, because we really do firmly believe in helping you make a plan, create a plan, come up with a plan, implement a plan, somehow, some way. And so we're going to be talking about that today.
I'm really excited about this as well because we're talking today about sharing our 5 guiding principles that really have been a game changer, I think, in us blending our families, but has been a game changer for me because you were introduced to it first before I was.
Yeah.
And has really changed for me personally how I parent, and has opened up a whole new world of strategy. I really feel like I have a tool now on how we and me individually can parent.
Yes.
In a really crazy, tough times.
Yes, these are tough times. And so I love that word strategy because it's easy to just go from decision to decision in parenting and feel like you're out of control sometimes, because when you get to the next season of life, you're like, I don't know what to do here. But our church provided this great resource for us, and it's just been a huge godsend. It's the book Parenting Beyond Your Capacity by Reggie Joyner and Carrie Newhoff. And this is not meant to be prescriptive at all. So this isn't the only way you can do it. This is not the only way to make a plan. This is not the only 5 principles that you can come up with. But we just wanted to give you a look behind the scenes at what our 5 principles are. And then what that looks like. Like, how do we flush that out? And what does that look like on a day-to-day basis with these kids? So,
great.
All right. So why do we need guiding principles?
Well, I think number one, if you have these guiding principles, it really helps you to make decisions.
It does.
When you say guiding principles, that's the point, right? Is
versus it being like a rule.
Right. It's like a North Star. So you kind of have you always have something to kind of go back to. And when you're in the middle of a crisis, right? Because when we are parenting teenagers, kids out of hurt, a lot of crazy things can happen or will happen.
Yes.
And we certainly have experienced
and have happened.
Yeah.
In the trailer home.
And if you have these guiding principles already in place, you can fall back to those, because if you don't have that in the middle of the crisis or right when the crisis starts, you're in a free fall and you are just going with the first reaction that you have. And I'm telling you, the first reaction, first thought that you have is normally going to be the one that's going to be the most hurtful and most damaging to the family.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live with a ton of regret in parenting. I realize that we're fallen. We have our own sin. We have our own deficiencies in that way. And so you're right. Like, having that guide is not going to give you the knee-jerk reaction, because let's be honest, like, I'm emotional. If you know me in real life, I'm a tad bit emotional and dramatic. And so my first instinct is not always the best one either. And I think having those principles does help take the emotion out of the actual situation of what's happening and kind of like temper it a little bit.
It gives us a conversation point too, right? Because if we are faced with a crisis, we can sit down on the couch and be like, okay, what does this mean? Is the world coming to an end, or is this just something that we've got to deal with in the short term, right? And it gives us a starting point in terms of how to parent through it, how to stay connected, and how to get aligned. Because sometimes those critical issues can be a divide.
They can, and especially when you're talking about like, well, they're a Stockton, they're a Traylor, and then you've got other emotions like tied to that particular child, and then how is it not an us versus them, and like how do you get unified in the middle of it? So you ready to break this down?
Let's do it.
All right. So the first one is make it personal. This is the concept that allows kids to strive and to grow so that they can learn how to confront like their own issues. They can own their own faith. But we've got to make it personal for ourselves first before we can teach them how to do it.
For me, that is being willing to admit your own mistakes. And that could be in the current term, right? In the right here and now, or in the past. In terms of, as you're talking to your kids, they oftentimes will think there's a certain age where they think their parents are perfect, right? And some of this has to be age appropriate.
Are we past that? I think we're past that. I'm thinking we're perfect.
I think probably so, but we're still heroes to a lot of them.
Okay,
that's just good. But that, to me, that's really important because they need to know that they're not the only ones struggling, right? Or they're not the only ones that have had doubts about their faith or about who they are or the struggles they have with friends, that sort of thing.
That's so true. And I know for us, when we were even dating, we really tried to model those things for them, like not asking them to do things that we weren't willing to do for ourselves.
Right. So when we were dating, we had 2 teenagers that were in the mix. And as we were starting to date and build our relationship, we quickly said, hey, we need to have a list of standards, right? Around physical intimacy and sexuality. And that was something that, I'm going to be honest with you, we're 2 real people. That was tough, right?
And having been married before and in relationships.
Right. And we've seen other folks just jump into it. And, we made a decision early on not to move in with each other. We were going to be very careful around when we were alone. And then, what our standards were physically. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of is that we did that. We can look back over our time and I think we really did model that in a healthy way.
It was hard to do it God's way.
Hard, yep.
But I'm so glad that we don't have regret in that area.
Me too.
Because I feel like God truly did bless our union and our unity. And not that he doesn't redeem those things or he can't restore those things, but we just knew he had a lot of eyes on us. And I think for me, knowing all the work that I had put in and that I had done to heal from what God had walked me through, I didn't want to wreck any of that. I didn't want to set myself back. I didn't want to cause more pain or more hurt to my heart and have to redo that in that way.
Right. And I think the other part of making it personal is being willing to have some of those tough conversations. I mean, in the just under 3 years that we've been married, we've had to have several of those. Several conversations of Michelle saying, Scott, you're the one that needs to have this conversation. I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a boy issue.
But, right, exactly. And, but having the courage to have those conversations and to make it in a way that there's no shame. Because there's some things we've had to walk our kids through and talk about where they've made mistakes, and we easily could have said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. The Bible says not to do that. And those are all true. There's been consequences for those. But in terms of making it personal, we made it a safe environment for them to talk about it and address the issues and know that they were loved through that scenario. Because in all of this, if they don't know that we're safe,
right,
and that they can trust us with their heart, all the other things we're going to be talking about fall by the wayside. Yeah,
that's good. Some good stuff. Okay, so looking at the second one, it's called Create a Rhythm. And this is the concept of creating repetitious environments or moments over time to make a lasting impact on the family. So thinking about consistency, rhythms that you have in the course of a week, in the course of a month, in the course of a year with your family. It could be rhythms involving faith. It could be rhythms involving just like your family dynamic, involving like your family of origin. So what are some ways that we do that?
So a really simple way that we've done it and been very consistent is we have dinner with each other every night. Some nights we don't because of commitments and things like that. But if everyone's here, we sit down, we have dinner, and they are not dismissed until we say they're dismissed. But it's created some great conversations, right? They know they need to be, if it's in the summertime, they know they need to be home at 6 o'clock for dinner, those sorts of things. And those are times that I think we will always cherish because great conversations happen during those times.
We pick on each other. I mean, they razz on each other. They're, talking to, you guys are always goofing around about like who likes who at school, and just he's great at like doing the little picking and lobbing the concepts and the questions out there. They're just get a little reaction,
poke the bear a little bit. I'm good at that.
I think church on a weekly basis is part of our rhythm. It's hard with two teenagers who are now in college, and that's its own dynamic of them trying to work out their own faith. And lots of conversations, around that. But as far as like our core unit, going to church every week is a rhythm that we want to establish, and we want them to have that predictable unity surrounding like their faith. And like this is one way that we can own our faith is being with other believers on a regular basis to learn about God, to worship, all those things. I think with the teenagers being in another season of life, creating a rhythm with them looks a little bit differently. So we haven't been necessarily like married to the same way that we do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what we see is there's just opportunities where they're coming and going. And so if they are in their room, we will just pop in, sit on the bed, sit in a chair in their room, and just kind of ask about their day. Sometimes it's just with food. Hey, we're coming home.
Food is an incredible currency. It is.
And sometimes it's just to let them know that we're thinking about them, right? So, hey, guys, we're out running an errand. We have a group text for the older group. We're going to stop by McDonald's. Anybody want anything, right? And so we'll just pick up whatever they want, bring it home. And then for that 5 or 10 minutes, we get home. Everybody's in the kitchen, chowing down, and then that's where we get some good time with them.
You listen, even if you get like 2 sentences out of them, that is a win.
Exactly. For sure. For sure. And then sometimes things blow up and you're like, oh my gosh,
can you guys go away again?
Close back. You get Channing dancing in the kitchen and all kinds of stuff. So
okay, so I was thinking too about how we just surprise them at work sometimes. That's kind of like a new rhythm now. Like if we're out and about, we're like, let's go get an iced tea from Wendy's where Braden works, or let's pop in here. Let's
go to Wegmans and I need to buy a stick of gum, and we'll try to find one of the two that are working at Wegmans. And it's always good to see them there too, because I think, number one, I think they do appreciate us going by. But then two, oftentimes a manager or another supervisor, it gives them an opportunity to say, hey, we really enjoy working, Braden or Janny or Andy working here. And I think that just makes them feel, you get to see eyes on it, right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a whole other thing because you're like, wait a second, are you using a broom and you're moving it back and forth? Wait, are you sweeping?
Wait, you're taking
the trash? You know how to sweep?
Wait, you're taking the trash out? Oh, we can do this at home too?
What? I didn't even know they knew how to do that. But isn't it amazing? They go to work and someone else tells them what to do and they do it. It's
my goodness.
It's like the most epic thing ever.
Right.
The next one is fight for the heart. So this is the concept of creating a culture of unconditional love that helps to fuel the emotional and moral health, where the kids are free to talk about pain and issues. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but we'll unpack this a little bit more. But we do try to set a tone where you're able to talk about anything. And this might be sticky for some of you, but you're able to talk about the other parent freely. You don't need to be like, we don't ever tell them like what they can and can't say in those ways, or just even hard things. Like, it's okay to talk about them. There's really not anything I can think of where we've like shut it down. I mean, maybe something like inappropriate or too many, like they're learning bad jokes or something. I don't know, but
right. I think
generally
one thing,
speaking,
and with the talking about the other parent, I think it's always been from a place of healing. Right. We're fighting for their heart.
Right.
And
that's
for
the concept.
Their healing.
For their heart, for their healing. Absolutely.
And that has always been a place that's been, again, in terms of this as a guiding principle, I think it's been a great one for us. But then, too, just within the confines of our own home, you know, we have rules, right? And we all have, you know, our egos and things like that. And as a parent, you should listen to me all the time. Right? And that's how we feel, or you should obey me all the time. And as the kids get older, they start questioning that, right? They start pushing back. Or they may make some questionable decisions, go out and get a piercing, dye their hair, whatever these things might be. We have to take a step back and say, okay, if I'm fighting for their heart, am I willing to win the battle, but lose the war?
Yes.
And if I lose the relationship in the process over this one thing, is it really worth it?
Again, not a win. Is that really the win?
Right. Not that there's not consequences, right? There's a way to do it. There's a way to frame it. But to me, that is a huge one. When I look at, you know, all of our kids, I want to be able to 30 years from now still have that relationship with them, right?
Absolutely. So, and I think of it too as just more of even heart attitudes and emotions, because that's kind of where the nitty gritty of parenting comes in. Is in that correcting and shepherding and like coaching them through those things. And so there'll be times where they'll say something, or they're in another room, and you know, it might not have been a good idea for us to like, you know, shout directions from another room, and they're kind of now shouting back, and the tone has taken a turn, and making them redo something or go back out and come back in and let's try that again, because like we're trying to get at the heart attitude. Right. Like you need to say that whole thing again, or you need to ask that in a different way.
And then sometimes in that, trying to dig into what's under that reaction, or what's under that emotion.
Yeah, like where did that come from? That came out of nowhere.
What's going on? And so many times when we've had the clarity in the moment to stop and say, okay, this doesn't feel right. Something's going on. To ask some more clarifying questions. And oftentimes it is, I got made fun of at school today. I had an issue with a friend of mine on the bus. 9 times out of 10, those reactions to us have come from something that they dealt with. Yes, they come from something else, and it's opened up a door because we're fighting for the heart. It gives us an opportunity to look beyond what's on the surface and really deal with what's going on. It's
not about the what or the behavior in the moment.
Right.
It's about the why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine the end is the next one. So you are focusing your energy and your efforts on who you're raising them to be. Like you're raising them to be someone's husband, someone's wife, someone's boss, someone's leader, someone's father. And so keeping that in front of us and in front of you is so beneficial because of some of these same principles, because you want the lasting impact and because you want to preserve the relationship.
Right, and I think when we were working on some of the merchandising for Blending Like Bosses to help raise some funds, you created a shirt or a little series called Raising Legends, right? And for me, that's exactly what this is about. If we're imagining the end, we are raising them to be legends in their future. And so whether if they're a boss, coworker, whatever it is, that's what we're trying to do. We're raising them to be legends and to be legendary.
Yeah. You love that, don't you? You're really so into that because it gives you handles.
It's something it's something to fight for. Yeah. Right? And it's something I don't want them to be ordinary.
Right.
I don't want them just to coast through life, you know. And again, they've got to make their own choices, but if we can shepherd them now and mentor them now to stretch them, to grow them, to challenge them, and they have the opportunity to be legendary. They can.
Channing came back recently to us and was kind of saying certain things that he was grateful for. Like every once in a while we'll get a little like moment with him.
Yeah, he was I think, you know, thanking us for some of the structure and telling him no sometimes. That he used to really get so mad about being able to not go over to a friend's house, which we know is a bad influence, or hey, when you get to be, I think was it like 16, when you get to be a working age, it's 15 or 16, you got to start working.
Yeah.
You got to get a job.
Yep.
And you're going to have to pay for your, you're going to have to put a down payment on a car, and we're not going to just give you one, you're going to have to help pay for it. So there's some sense of ownership with it. You're going to have to pay your insurance. You have to pay your own gas. And so trying to teach some of these responsibilities that, quite honestly, you know, in my earlier life with Channing and Braden, I didn't necessarily have some of that structure in place for them as much. And so it was a good opportunity to, in that scenario, kind of draw the line and say, okay, from this point forward, we're gonna do something different. And to have your son come back and say, hey guys, I really have appreciated you kind of making me do some of this stuff because I've learned so much through it. There's no better moment as a parent. It really isn't. I
think it's interesting with the littler kids, how even in doing chores every week in that kind of rhythm, that they've made comments about like, I know why you make us do chores, because how would we know how to do this if we had our own house? A little funny thing about that is they have an Instagram account, Here Come the Trailers, and we've gotten some like, I'll call it like hate comments or haters or whatever, trolls, internet trolls, whatever. And I was posting something about doing chores, and we got comments and feedback like, that's, wrong. You should never make a child do chores. And I remember Sophia just feeling like she had arrived because she got hate mail. Like, she was like, we're official. We got, hate mails. We got haters out there.
Right.
Like, but even that, she's like, what? People actually think that's wrong? How could they? Like, how else are we going to know, Mom? I'm like, exactly.
You're doing something, you're heading down a good path when both of your teenagers come back and say, hey, Dad, Michelle, what you're doing with the younger ones, we wish we would have had.
Yeah.
And you keep doing it because it's going to make their life easier as they transition. And for them to see that, it's just a really, really cool thing.
I mean, let's not, take it too far. I mean, they're not like talking this way to us every day.
This happened this is like a total like a 5-minute conversation over like 6 months, right? So it's like 30 seconds here, 30 seconds here, right? Yeah, for sure. But I will take it and run with it.
Absolutely. But I'm just telling you, like if you have teenagers, like there's these like ebbs and flows, and then like these like moments of clarity.
Exactly.
Which I just think are so funny. Because it's like, they really are like getting to be an adult, Yes. They're like still half in this world, half in that world, and then you like see part of the adult, like, ooh, okay. I like that side of them. I think they're gonna make it. Right. And they do something stupid, and you're like, maybe not.
This is the future? Oh boy. Right.
Yes. Okay, and then the final one is Widen the Circle. And this is the concept about allowing other voices to shape basically your kids, to speak into their lives, to help give them perspective and experience and wisdom, so that your voice isn't the primary voice. Because at some point, your voice is not going to be the loudest one. They're not going to want to hear from Mom and Dad anymore.
Right, if you have younger kids, you haven't experienced this yet. I'm telling you, the day's coming where, as they transition into being a teenager, you're not the hero of their world anymore, and they want to hear what their friends are saying and what they're listening to music, and culture is fighting for their ear, and we need to find other people that they respect that can be a continuation of our voice in that period of time.
And I would say, like, connecting the dots back to creating rhythm, like, that's why, for us, faith is an important rhythm to create, and, like, having that consistent attendance, because that's kind of the first introduction of other voices, when they have a leader at church who is invested in them, and who loves them and cares about them and sees them on a consistent basis.
Right.
I can name so many examples of that, but I think it's interesting of what happened with Braden, like when he got into trouble, and then just how one thing led to another, and how his circle widened, and how we allowed that to shape itself.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell the story of that?
Do it.
So there's actually a couple of principles that this hits on. So there's a period of time where Braden got in trouble at school. But here's what I challenge you to do. Is you've been talking about wanting to write rap music for a long time. And so my challenge to you here is, whatever the emotions that you've got going on, you got to figure this out, write it down, write a rap song about it, and then work to try to get it produced. And so he was trying to figure this out. I said, if you use this time where you're basically grounded and have a lot of things taken away, now you have time. Yep. He didn't have a job at the time. Like this was going to be his job. And so, to my surprise, he reached out to an individual named Carrie at our church, who had some experience with this. And so Braden had written his song, and then Carrie dropped a lot of things for Braden to work on this, and Braden pushed. My man got this song written and produced in about a week and a half. So, but in the middle of that, he built a relationship with Kyrie that exists to this day. He was able to write a song that has had several thousand views on YouTube. He's then worked with some people to help him produce a video, our music video on it. And honestly, I think that point in time was the springboard, was the beginning of his healing.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Again, our voices will begin to drown out the older they get as they enter into being a teenager.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Blending Like Bosses. We hope that you had some takeaways. We hope you were encouraged today. Even if there's one little nugget you can take away, it would just totally bless our hearts, because we want to share what we've been learning and growing from with all of you. We'll see you next time.
Today's big idea comes from Proverbs, specifically Proverbs 22:6, where the Bible says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." This means that we need to parent with a plan.
We need to have a plan. I think the King James says train. And so when we look at this, we see, okay, there's got to be some type of plan that sets the family in motion. And let's not just wing it.
Right.
Because we don't want to live with regret. We want to be successful. We want God to bless what we're investing and pouring into them.
Right. And we don't have this all figured out.
No, we don't.
We talk about this a lot. And if you feel like you don't have it figured out too, that's why we're here.
Right.
And we want to be a resource. So we would really encourage you to reach out to us on our Facebook page. We've got the information below. Because we would love to hear from you. And if we could be a resource and a help, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah. We would love to encourage you and support you so that you can blend like bosses too.